Ladies and gentlemen, it's now 6:47 p.m. and a quorum of members is present, so the meeting of the Board of Education of the School District of New Berlin is called to order. Please call the roll.
Ms. Crosby. Here. Mr. Helmer.
Here.
Ms. Connick.
Here.
Ms. Scholes.
Here.
Mr. Seidel.
Here.
Ms. Wonderchuk.
Here.
I would entertain a motion to recess to closed session. Is this it?
Madam President, I move to recess into closed session pursuant to Section 19.85, 1C, E, and F of the Wisconsin State Statutes to consider A, the approval of closed session minutes of June 13th, B, employment services report, and C, return to open session.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Helmer and a second by Mr. Seidel. Please call the roll.
Mr. Helmer.
Yes.
Mr. Seidel.
Yes.
Ms. Crosby. Ms. Connick.
Yes.
Ms. Scholes.
Yes.
Ms. Wonderchuk.
Yes.
We are moving to closed session. We'll return to open session around 7 o'clock. It is now 7 o'clock, and we are returning from closed session into open session. In recognition of the serious and important nature of our efforts here, we will join in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. For all those who are able, please rise. And now, for those who wish to prepare for the meeting, we'll have a moment of silence. This is a public meeting of the Board of Education. Prior to this meeting, notice was given to the public last Friday by providing the agenda to the City Library. The agenda was also posted on the district website. A copy of the agenda was forwarded to the Journal Sentinel, the Waukesha Freeman, and the Waukesha Now, all of which have filed requests for all public notices. It doesn't look like we have anybody for privilege of the floor this evening. So we have President's message. This happens to be our last meeting of the school year. And I also learned this evening that this is the last meeting that Diana Hanson is going to be serving as our secretary of the board here. And we just want to express our appreciation to her for all her wonderful years that she's served many boards, not just this one. And especially I really appreciate you for how you've helped me as the president, and it's just been wonderful to all of us. I know we all expressed our gratitude to you just a little while ago, but I wanted to make that public so everybody knows what a wonderful help you've been to the board. Thank you.
And thank you.
Then we have a superintendent update, but I know Mr. Garza's not here with us this evening, but do we have other board administration? Okay, so we don't have anything to update yet. We do have our district reports, which include the incident report, the enrollment report, the suspension report, the financial reports, and the donation report. Mr. Seidel, would you please read the donation report? Sorry, I should have given you more warning.
Association to pay bus funds for 5th grade field trip in the amount of $500. The approval date was 5/9/2022. Next one was from the Ronald Reagan Home and School Association to support co-curriculars in the amount of $1,938. The approval date was 5/9/2022. The next one was, all right, there we go. Ronald Reagan Home and School Association to pay the bus trip for the 1st grade students in the amount of $500. Next one again, Ronald Reagan Home and School Association, support all school read in the amount of $2,275. Again, the Ronald Reagan Home and School Association supports staff funding for 3 kindergarten carpets in the amount of $1,894.05. Again, we have the Ronald Reagan Home and School Association to support the fun run with the teacher reimbursements in the amount of $3,630.58. The next one was the Ronald Reagan Home and School Association pay for 3 students' standing desks in the amount of $199.96. Next one is from the Poplar Creek PTO to pay for all school field trip buses in the amount of $1,938.60, bringing our total donations to $14,675.89. And again, thank you to all of our generous donors for this amazing amount. That ends my report.
Thank you, and thank you to all of our donors as well. Then we have our consent agenda next on the agenda, which includes the notice and the approval of minutes of June 13th, and there's also approval of a new student group. Are there any items that should be pulled out for separate consideration? Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Helmer and a second by Mr. Seidel to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes. On to our regular agenda. We have the employment services update.
Good evening. Okay, and here we go. I can get this clicker to work. There we go. So what I'm going to be presenting to you this evening is our data from our employee feedback surveys. So we do two different types of surveys for staff when we're collecting data from them. And the first is typically, in the past, has been individual stay interviews, kind of one-on-one interviews with staff. This year, we've been doing the one-on-one stay interview for 4-ish years. We decided to switch it up. We were not getting as good a response rate out of the stay interviews, so this year we decided to go to each school. We, being the Employment Services Department, went to each school and interviewed a group of teachers, anywhere ranging from 5 to 10, and they were a mix of general education and special education staff. And so we sat down with that group and just kind of fired off some questions, and they all chimed in as a group. And I'll get to the next slide where that kind of talks about that. So it was more of a stay focused group for this year. And we conducted these interviews by school in March and April. And then, like I said, it was small groups. And then what we did with the data is myself and my coordinator, she would take notes, and as I would as well. And we are also using a new program called Qualtrics, in which we're inputting our data. So we put the data for each question, all the responses into that system, and then using the system, we're able to pull out themes and kind of sort and really do a really nice deep analysis with that. A little bit more scientific, if you will. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but we were able to pull out some good themes using that data and using that software that we have. So I'll go through each question that we use for the Stay Focused group, and what I've done here is just pull out anywhere from the top 5 to top 3, depending on how many responses we got, themes that go with that question. So what you'll see on the left-hand side is going to be kind of the top themes that came out of that question in terms of their responses. And then we also pulled out some quotes, some individual quotes. There were far more than that, but these were just some quotes that we feel like kind of captured the sentiment from that theme. So you can, I'm not going to read each quote to you. You can certainly read those on your screen there. But you'll see for what do you like most about your job? Very consistent year over year from now, even through the individual stay interviews that we conducted in the past. Coworkers and teams are, they really enjoy who they work with. They enjoy the collaborative environment that we have here in New Berlin. Their culture has been positive in their individual schools, the connections they make with their peers, as well as the students that they get to teach and support every single day. And then what we've asked, kind of what is the least satisfying aspect of your job, or what gives you the most stress or kind of concerns on a day-to-day basis. So it was more like top 3 themes in this one, which was limited prep time. Some of that has come out as a result of the pandemic. So it's, looking at, do I have time if a lot of people are out? Some of that workload, work-life balance, we've seen that in the past as well. And then student behaviors. And again, you can read through some of the quotes that are off to the side. What do we do well as a district to support our staff? They were very positive about their school leadership teams, so their principals, their associate principals, as well as district leadership. Overall communication, they said, continue to say that that has improved. The growth and development, so that's really tied into their professional learning support, the amount of support that they get as a district to grow as educators. Recognition was a strength, as well as trust and care. The top 3 things we can do to retain staff. Pay was a big one this year. So across the board, and you'll see it in our second survey that we conduct as well, but there are some concerns that the pay is perhaps falling behind. So they're looking at pay, changes to the compensation model, perhaps adjusting the portfolio process, and then opportunities, increasing opportunities to earn additional compensation. And then things just kind of workday, and I think that ties again into, workday actually ties into having a day during the year designated. We've had it the past couple years, kind of midway through the year at semester, where they get a day, and it's just it's a pure work day where they're grading, they're lesson planning, they're meeting with their peers, and it's kind of that day to play catch up as we're transitioning from one semester to the next. So they really appreciated that and would like to see that stay. What might tempt you to leave? Pay, again, was raised. So another district making a better offer. Change in school or district leadership. As we said, they really like their leadership teams in their building. So a change to that leadership team might cause them some concern or might make them want to leave. Again, if workload and work-life balance were to get worse, let's say, or even if their culture or their environment in their school were to change drastically, that might prompt them to leave. And then our second staff survey is more of a multiple choice or kind of a scale survey. So I'll explain a little bit of this. And again, this was a new survey this year. We've never given this survey. We have done staff surveys in the past, but this year we completely shifted the questions. Again, in implementing Qualtrics, which is being used by districts across southeastern Wisconsin, it's an employee experience survey. It's also used in private sector as well. So it's not necessarily education specific, it's more employee experience specific. So the survey was given to all staff. So that is support staff, that is licensed educator staff. You can see what our response rate is. 465 out of 576 is actually quite a good response rate for that particular survey. Some folks who were more on the support staff side who might work only about 3 hours or so, a lot of them said they just didn't feel comfortable responding to the survey, so they just let it be. And others might not access, if we're being realistic, some people just don't access their email or have a little bit of issue doing that at times. But again, it was a new format, a new question set for 2022 using this program. And we'll kind of dive into that, and I'll explain on the first slide what you're going to be looking at. So it's a little small, but hopefully on your screen you're getting a better view. It kind of breaks it down into 3 main sections that you're being measured on within the survey. So how engaged are your employees? What is their experience versus expectations, which might sound kind of odd initially, but it's essentially, does the experience that they're having here as an employee match what they thought it was going to be like when they first came aboard? So when they were applying here, they had a certain image in their head of what SDNB was going to be like for them. Is it living up to those expectations? And then the third one is whether or not they plan to stay. The blue is going to be a positive response. So the scale that they were responding to was essentially strongly disagree, disagree, neutral, agree, and strongly agree. So that's the 5-point scale. So the blue is going to be that strongly agree or agree response. The yellow or the goldish color you see there is going to be that neutral response. And then the red is a disagree or strongly disagree response. So that's how that breaks down. That's why in the middle, it's kind of like you have a very strong neutral response in the middle one section. Same with intent to stay, it's fairly high. That number, that 75%, is reflective of just the positive responses, okay? Same within the middle, that 37% is just the positive responses there. It doesn't count the neutral. Top 3 areas of strength, and it's, again, a little bit tiny there, but living the values. So I believe that in the company's values. Very good response there, and as it should be. The people who work here believe in what we're doing, believe in our mission and vision. Again, 82% positive response, and then that yellow is that neutral response. My manager's behavior is consistent with the company values. When they use the term manager anywhere in that survey, and it is defined for them at the start of the survey, manager refers to their principal. And so you can see that they feel respected in the company. That's really hard to, I have an eye doctor appointment tomorrow. I'm treated with respect at work. Again, very high positive response rate alone, and then the other part is neutral. And then safety was also rated very high. So my principal's actions show a commitment to safety. I feel safe when I'm at work. Very high responses there across the board. And then our top 3 areas of growth, you'll see the experience versus expectation. So there's the actual question they were asked. So it's overall, to what extent does your experience working with this company meet your expectations? You can see it's very, very high on the neutral side. And so we will work on raising that positive response rate there. The idea being you want to exceed your employees' expectations. And then pay and benefits, I'm paid fairly for the work that I do. You can see that those are the 2 questions that tie into that. My pay is closely linked to my performance. So that probably, as we're talking about compensation model, that's something that we need to dig into. And then we have recognition. I receive meaningful recognition when I do a good job. So we want to continue to kind of raise that high level. It's a pretty high neutral response rate there, and we want to continue to make that neutral response more positive and decrease the negative response to that. And then these were some comments. Now keep in mind, not everybody comments. There probably were about 400 some comments in the survey. When you see that number, there's the number, 69 up there. That's reflective of how many responses tied into these 3 themes that you're seeing. And with this comment section, what you're seeing is very similar to what we did with the focus groups, where we pulled all the individual comments out and we looked for common themes throughout them. So these are some common themes just from the comments. So they believe we're very good at achievement. So student achievement is a strength. The tools and resources that we offer, both to staff and to students. And then our college and career readiness programming is also a strength. And then 3 themes that the district should improve. Again, pay came out very strongly there. Training, you'll see a couple comments there related back to how we're making sure we're onboarding and training up our support staff, especially was one of the areas. And then actually there were quite a few no comments in this section about what should be improved. And then we have next steps. So what do? We have this data. What are we going to do with it? So we have shared this data with individual schools. So you see the district breakout of the data. Individual schools have their school-specific data along with the district data. And so they have that shared with them, and that will be part of their work this summer as we develop our goals going into the next school year for individual buildings. So they'll be assembling goals and action plans. We'll be working on having each school build out their own individual employee experience dashboard where they can show the results. Because one of the most important things to do when you're doing a survey is show transparency, show staff what the results are going to be. Otherwise, they're not going to take your survey after that if they don't see what the outcome is. So we're working on building out those dashboards as well. That will be part of our staff intranet, so they can see where we're at currently and where we're headed. We have organized a group of HR directors. We'll be meeting in September at one of our monthly meetings to sit down. As I mentioned, most of us are using this program, Qualtrics, so we'll be pulling in common questions, comparing our data to one another, and kind of seeing, if there's another district doing really well here, and maybe we're here, what can we do? What are their strategies that they're using? Kind of compare those strategies, compare the data, and see where we're at there. And then, in addition, we'll be looking at our licensed educator evaluation program and our compensation, reviewing our compensation model to look at, to really address that base pay concern that came out through the survey. So, in the fall, I'll be back. It's usually sometime in September or late August, where we come in and do the fall employment services report. So in that report, that's when we'll be presenting our retention data. So, because people do tend to move throughout the summer, so we'll have our final retention data to share with you, how we did, how we compare to our peers as well in other districts. We have been collecting exit interview data from staff who have resigned, and so we'll present that exit interview data at that time. We'll talk about our portfolio compensation results. Portfolios from staff as part of the compensation model are due June 30th, and so we will begin scoring those out in July. And so we'll share that with you. And then we'll also share out what some of those employee experience goals are going to be and our action plans tied to that, that we'll be working on this summer based on our survey results. Any questions?
When you say base pay, what are we referring to? Is it the starting pay or is it their pay without?
It's their current pay that they're at. I don't, if you're a new teacher, it's your very starting pay, but it's their current salary.
Okay. And then the number one thing that concerned me in this was, where was it? My pay is clearly linked to my performance. That was the worst score we had. And it's been a little bit of a concern of mine when we do pay increases. I feel like we just do it flat across the board, and I don't want to create mediocrity, and that's my concern with what we've been doing, and that number right there is speaking to that. Do you agree with that? Is that some of the changes you're looking at, or what are your thoughts around that?
That's linked to our compensation model. So we have the general increase that the board provides, and it's also voted on with the strategic compensation. Those comments are related to our current strategic compensation model. So they're looking at, again, they're looking at the portfolio process specifically and how they can earn additional compensation through that.
So that's entirely, you believe, around the portfolio process?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you remind me why there's the 3-year process, the 3-year?
Sure. Currently in the state of Wisconsin, the teacher evaluation model, educator effectiveness, is based on a 3-year cycle. So, and that's throughout the state. There are 2 dominant models, the Strong and the Danielson. And so every 3 years, teachers are scored out, and that's just part of how that state model was built. It's not to say that you have to do it that way, though.
Okay.
So we'll be looking into, alternatives to that.
The other districts around us, are they using a 3-year?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
To add to that, are they using the same portfolio process, or are they doing it
No,
different?
this is a unique to New Berlin model. It is not uncommon to have steps and lanes in a lot of other districts.
It's common, you said, or not common?
Not uncommon, so it is common
Okay.
to see that actually.
Are there other processes like Brookfield, Muskego? I mean, have we looked at that?
Yep, we're going to be examining, again, what everybody's doing currently, but then, and seeing what's out there, what we can improve upon. We're going to look outside of the state as well.
Okay.
I have a question for Kelly. So one of the things that came out in the survey was training. So like the new ELA curriculum, I know we have a couple days scheduled for training, but what are we going to do beyond that? Like, Are we going to reach back out to teachers to ask them if they need more training? What are we going to?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. Actually, we're doing a lot of training this summer. So all of our teachers can earn 4 hours of flex PL. They can use it for how they choose to learn. So we have set up already, we've had 4 days of training for teachers. We have another 4 days set up for July. And then after each one, we're kind of talking about what else do you need? If you remember, we've also added 2 additional PL days in August before the school year gets started. So by the time we get started, they will be ready to teach Unit 1 and beyond. We'll keep getting feedback loops, and then we have 2 additional PL days set for October as well. So we're kind of building that in as we go, and we're going to do a lot of just-in-time learning. Instead of everybody getting the same stuff, it's really going to be like, what additional pieces do you need to make sure that your students are successful? So it's kind of a huge packaged approach, but we're going to be monitoring that with feedback loops throughout the year. Yep.
I just had a question about those summer days. So when teachers have to, come in the summer and do some of this training, like for this ELA rollout, are those days included in the contract days in their contract?
No, they're not.
They're not. So they have to work for free in those days.
They are voluntary, those particular summer days. They can earn professional learning hours. Currently, our portfolio process requires 16 hours annually for additional compensation. So they can use it for that. But it is voluntary. We are recording those sessions so that those who cannot be here for that can still access it.
So why don't we pay them? Because when I work, I expect to be paid. When you work, you expect to be paid. Why aren't we paying them for all the days they're working? Because I'd like to incentivize them to come and do these trainings. I don't want them to feel like they're volunteers. I think that if somebody told me I had to come into work and I'm not going to be paid today, I'd be less likely to want to go than if somebody said, I'm going to get paid. That seems crazy. No?
Well, we can definitely take that into consideration, but that is what those additional PL hours are for. So they have to earn 4 additional flex PL hours. So those 4 hours are going to be done.
Okay.
That
based
gives
off
them a
of
day
this
off
training.
before Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
Okay, so they have to learn. So I'm sorry, and I apologize for my ignorance about this because I'm not a teacher
No
and I don't understand, how it all works. But like, I'm a lawyer, so as a lawyer, I have to do 30 hours of continuing legal education every 2 years, report them to the state bar. That's my obligation, right? And nobody pays me to do that, of course. I have to take time out of my workday and whatever. So you're telling me the teachers have to do 4 hours of independent professional learning every year, right? And how many days are we requiring them to come in without being paid? Or I
We're not
shouldn't say
requiring
requiring.
them to
Or
come
I'm
in for
sorry,
any
requiring is a
days.
bad word. How many days are we asking them to volunteer their time to come in and not be paid? How many days is that?
Well, they're only required to do 4 hours this summer. So,
Okay.
so
I should say, let me rephrase. How many days are we offering for them to come in and get training on ELA that they're not being paid for? Or how many?
just the one.
One day?
Well, it's one afternoon right now, but
Okay.
they're having their materials for the whole summer. So we're kind of introducing it. We're training them. We're giving them the additional days at the beginning of the school year. I mean, ultimately the compensation is there because they get a full day off. They get 8 hours off for doing 4 hours of PL.
Okay, but I thought you said, Kelly, I'm confused. I thought
They
you
get the
said-
day off before Thanksgiving. That's it, in the calendar. It's designated
Right.
as the flex day. So if you don't do your hours before that, then you come in that Wednesday and you work.
Okay, but I understood, Kelly, when you were answering Amy's question, you said that we have several days throughout the summer that they're going to be training.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I may have misspoke on that. I
That's okay. I
apologize.
just- I
They
wanna
are required to do one of the 8 days that we're offering. So we're giving them lots of flexibility on when they can come in and do the 4 hours of training, but
Okay.
they're only required to participate in one, but they could also watch it at their convenience at a later time. Our staff is great about wanting to know what they're going to be teaching their students. So
Yeah.
they're willing to do what needs to be done. I mean, I'm not going to argue, as you can see from the survey, they would love more money. But they have always done this. We've done it with math, where we've had trainings during the summer. We did it with social studies.
Sure, and I understand that, and I appreciate that, and I'm glad that they're willing to do it. I just think as a foundational principle, I don't think we should ask employees to do things that they don't get paid for, because they're employees.
But it does sound like they're getting paid for it. This is flexible. So they can do 4 hours this summer and get off 8 hours during the school year.
But I understood from what Nicole was saying that there are other days that they're coming in.
Exactly what I said.
Okay,
They can
I'm
do
confused.
those. Kelly's offering 8 different times during the summer to come in
Okay.
and train. So
Okay.
they're coming in
So-
one of those days for a half day to earn their 4 hours of flex PL.
Okay.
And then they have off the day before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
as a result.
So they're not, so then there's no time
Mm-hmm.
that they have to, I mean, there's no time that they have to come in and they're not being paid.
Right,
Okay. I just want to make sure about that because that was concerning to me.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't,
right.
I don't work for free.
What you might have been confused about is in the portfolio, we ask them to commit to doing 16 hours of professional learning throughout the year.
No, I wasn't thinking about
okay,
that.
okay.
No. All right. Thank you.
Certainly.
Okay, one more question. So, the new survey, does it like highlight areas? Let's say we wanted to focus on work-life balance. Does it group questions to show that area?
It does, yes. And actually we can kind of look at which questions are most tied to those responses.
Yeah,
And
okay.
if we pull down the work-life balance like theme, there are a couple questions underneath that where that ties back to it. So yeah, it's really slick.
Okay.
The level of analysis that we can really dig
So
into.
if we, like, we're setting goals for, so if we wanted to, not that we're doing this, but if we wanted to set a goal to say, like, improve work-life balance by X%, we could look at that because we'd have the data that
Yep,
way. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
So will the survey be the exact same next year?
Yes.
Okay.
So that'll be nice too. We'll have year-over-year data, and then again, like I said, we're meeting up with our local HR friends to talk about similarities and differences in our responses across
And then
districts.
I assume you have like dashboards to look at all of this. and-
Yep, it's a great dashboard. It's really nice.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep,
One question.
absolutely.
You said that you were going to be doing a wage analysis and presenting that to us in the fall?
I didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're reviewing, no, and that's not actually, the best time to present that is going to be midwinter. And because what we did this past fall was look at wages again. What's tricky about that is, so DPI collects data through what's called a WISE staff report, and that data all has to be submitted in December. So the actual data that you have for that school year, for next school year, we won't have that data until maybe January, February. Now I am working with a different group where we're uploading it through a tool called Skyward, and we can get it maybe as early as November. But realistically, to be able to do a strong compensation analysis of our teacher salaries from our district to the others, we'll be able to present that probably in January or February ahead of contracts coming out.
Okay.
We'll try to get it to you as soon as we can. We
I
did
appreciate that.
something similar this year where we pulled all that data again and looked at.
Remembered that.
What I mentioned was the compensation review, so really looking at our model is what we want to dig into, not so much we'll still dig into our comparables, our market comparables, but we want to look at our actual compensation model and see what we can do with
Okay.
that,
All right, perfect. Thank you.
certainly.
And if there's no other questions, I want to take this opportunity to thank Nicole and her very small staff for the work that they do. I've said this before, I will continue to say it as long as I am privileged to be the Chief Financial and Operations Officer here at New Berlin. I've got an insanely talented group of directors, and Nicole is one of them. What her and her staff do is phenomenal. K-12 public education is an industry that is very, very heavy in personnel. We don't have, robotic welders, and we, don't have, injection mold machines that can, produce 10, 20, 30 pieces at a time. It's very heavy with people, and that puts a lot of pressure on the human resource department. and the things that Nicole and her staff are doing to help the district move forward. For example, moving to Qualtrics, where we're going to be able to have more comparative data instead of just comparing our data to ourselves from year to year, I think is a phenomenal move. Her leadership in getting other districts to share that data, the other districts that are using Qualtrics, so that together we can all learn more about our staff and do, work to make all of education in southeastern Wisconsin better. And then her work in looking at a new compensation model. The school district in New Berlin is very unique. This is the first district I've worked with that did not have a traditional step and lane, and I started the year that Act 10 happened. So we are a leader in the state as far as alternative compensation models. And now, before everybody else catches up to us, we're already looking at what the next move is going to be. And so you should be very proud of the Employment Services Department that you have working for the School District of New Berlin.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks. I do have questions though.
Yes.
But I have to say, I have always been impressed with how you guys work and being in the same type of
Thank you.
work kind of thing. You do what I would expect you to do, and you're doing it pretty well. I have questions though,
Sure,
a little
sure.
bit. I love that you guys are having this new survey and being able to, compare it to other school districts and even other employers. But going to the one-on-ones with some of that feedback, I was just thinking it was very interesting. I noticed that the area of improvement was student behavior. And then I saw, though, that there seemed to be a lot of satisfaction, though, with the leadership in the schools. So I'm just trying to think, like, what were you learning about student behavior that was an area to improve? It sounds like at least they're getting support from their local leadership. So what else could it be that it could be improved upon in what's happening there?
I can definitely pull some of that out for you and get you guys a response. I want to go back through the different quotes and kind of talk through and tease some of that out for you. But I think we can definitely have that discussion at a future date. I just on the spot right now.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
But yes, we can pull that for you and get you more details on that if that's okay.
And I'd be really curious to see the results for school by school. Would you be able to share that
We
with the
have it
board?
broken down school by
Okay.
school. We absolutely do.
Can I actually ask the Personnel Committee to take some of this on? Because I know we were
Okay.
talking about some of this before, and report back to the board if you guys see some common threads. I think you guys will just be able to dive in
Okay.
deeper in a smaller group.
All right. Well, that's it for me if there's no other questions. All right. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to our next, which is the discuss and approval of the preliminary budget. Is there any other presentation to do, or nothing changed since last?
No, there's no other
meeting?
question, there are no other presentation, and we did receive no questions regarding the preliminary budget since the last meeting, so.
Okay. Then do I have a motion to approve the preliminary budget?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Helmer and second by Mr. Seidel to approve this preliminary budget as presented. Is there any discussion? Well, because of our work session, it came up as to how much is being put into Fund 41. I could not remember off the top of my head. I didn't go look it up. Do you remember how much is being put into Fund 41 for this next school year? Sorry.
Yes, I'll get right to that. This year, initially, we are planning on $1.8 million. As I continue to build the budget with Andy Stefanson, there is as we identify projects that would fit into Fund 41, I may recommend that we move some money out of his budget into Fund 41 so that we can slide those projects in there.
Okay.
I think that was a separate question, because we were talking what we set aside for long-range plan and then Fund 41. So I think I was conflating the two.
Oh. Okay. I remember talking about Fund 41 during the work session, so I didn't have anything else on that one.
The $1.8 million is directly related to the savings in principal and interest from the debt that we paid at the call date in March.
All right. Any other discussion? Okay, then all those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes. So then we have our future meetings and dates. Board meetings are
Oh,
generally.
sorry. First we have the closed session.
Oh, how did I miss that? I'm sorry. I jumped over it. There it goes. Okay, so we have an action item from closed session.
Yeah, Madam President, I move to approve the employment services report as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Crosby and a second by Mr. Helmer to approve. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, so now we can go on to future meetings and dates. Board meetings are generally held the second and fourth Mondays, beginning at 7 o'clock p.m. in the Eisenhower Commons unless noted otherwise. We have July 25th is our next meeting, and then we have a meeting August 8th. Other important events and dates to remember, September 26th is our annual meeting and budget hearing. And I should also mention that during the 4th of July festival here in New Berlin, we have the New Berlin Education Foundation is going to have a tent. So we welcome all of you and invite all of you to stop by during that festival that we have. Now on to adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Helmer and a second by Mr. Seidel to adjourn. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. This meeting is adjourned.